back to the Capture Your Confidence podcast. We are spending this month going over our top 5 episodes of the year, and we're on number 2 this week, and it is how to create a win-win personally and professionally with Rebecca Sposita.
I remember just being so amazed at her resilience in this conversation and talking through some of the hardships that she faced in her career. And I am so excited for you guys to be able to re-listen back on this chat.
Yeah, she talked about the book that she wrote and her journey through it all. And it was very relatable because she talked about juggling her career and parenthood and all the things that we know make for a great conversation.
So without further ado, here's the episode.
All right, we'll talk to you guys next week. Welcome back to the Capture Your Confidence podcast. We are here today with a special guest. We have with us Rebecca Sposita, who is the president of Sam Bernstein Law and author of a book called Win-Win. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me on today.
Awesome. Could you tell us just a little bit about yourself, the 10,000 foot view?
Sure. So as you said, my name's Rebecca. I'm the president of the Sam Bernstein Law Firm. I've been with the firm for about 15 years and kind of worked my way up through the ranks. Also, I'm a wife of 25 years and a mom of 2 boys. And so just, that's kind of high level what I am. It's kind of like the split between the professional and the personal. And so that's...
Yeah, very cool. Okay, so for me as a lawyer by trade, when I see a woman in leadership in a law firm, the first thought I have is like, wow, how did you make it? Because it can be really hard on women in our industry. And so when you hear that, kind of what was your journey like to stick it out so long in a firm environment and then also climb up to leadership?
Right. It's a great question. And it is true. It's a difficult journey, particularly for women. And I've been blessed with having an amazing firm to grow in. I think that's really important. When I started out my career, I was a medical malpractice litigator, which is a very, very tough male-dominated place. And so I think I learned a little bit of toughness there that carried on in a really helpful way throughout my career. And I think just working hard at all the positions and trying to be authentic and kind of who I am and my strengths. And, I'm not the same as a man that would run the firm. And that's a good thing,
Yeah.
Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, I suppose. But just being myself and trying to achieve the next level and all the things I do, it's really just how I've operated.
I have to imagine as someone who's not in the legal field, but having lots of girlfriends who have had this career path, that the culture of the firm really plays a massive role. Because, you can be as ambitious and you can be as dedicated and as hardworking as you are, but then still sort of be met with resistance. So talk to me about the importance of picking a firm like that really felt like it was going to help accelerate your growth and value the fact that you are a multifaceted person who has more than just work going on in your life.
Right. So before I joined this firm, I mentioned, I worked at another firm, and that person who I worked for there, before I came to take the job at this firm at Sam Bernstein Law, I called him, what do you think about this place? And his response was, look, if you go there, you're never going to leave. It's an amazing place. And so, most of us in Michigan here have heard of my firm and know kind of what our reputation is. I didn't know for sure that that's how it was going to be. So when I made the leap to come here, I was so pleasantly surprised with just how amazing this family is that I work for and work with. One small example that I'd love to talk about because it's so unique. About a year or two after I started here, I got pregnant, and I was like, having stayed home with my first son, I was in law school. I started law school when my oldest was 6 months old. So I was in law school at the time, having a baby, all that thing. But I got to be home with him during the days and went to school at night. And so when I joined this firm, and when I had a baby, I was like, oh man, I don't know if I'm going to be able to be away from him. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to just be away all the time. And they were like, and so for the first year of his life, I brought my son to work with me every day. I had a crib in my office and, a baby monitor there. And I would go to a meeting and somebody on my team would hang onto the monitor and grab him if he needed it. And sometimes I'd come back to my office and Mark Bernstein would be in my office holding my son. It's just such a beautiful miracle of a place. And so I'm really well aware of the blessing that I have of being in this environment. And I don't think I would be here still if it wasn't like that, you know.
Yeah.
Unicorns exist, everyone.
Right. I know. That's cool. Okay. So let's backtrack a little because I don't think I knew that you went to law school when you had a baby also. Where do you get the confidence to decide that that's a good idea to do that, you know, in that moment?
I don't know if it was confidence as much as just like crazy ambition. I think everybody, I would say almost everybody in my life other than my husband was like, you are nuts. What are you doing? And it's just what I wanted to do. It's just what I knew I needed to do for myself, and had a lot of support in doing that and getting through. But it's you know, it was tough, obviously, you know, going to school all day, my husband working all day, and I'm going to school, or I mean, I'm with my son all day, and then at school all night, and my husband and I didn't see each other for a good 3 or 4 years. Certainly wasn't confidence that led me to that. It really was almost insanity, I believe. But, you know, I built confidence through that, right? I think most of the decisions I've made are like, wow, you're going to go do that. Like a few years ago, I decided I wanted to go back to school again. And I went to Harvard Business School to do an advanced management program. And I had to spend 6 weeks there. And so again, it's like kind of nuts, but I feel like challenging myself and continuing to stretch is what has helped me build confidence over the years. Anytime I feel a little bit, oh, I'm insecure about the financials, I should know more about how to do that. Go do that then, you know? And that's just how I've always been.
It really does sound like curiosity is a little bit of a drive. Like curiosity paired with ambition is like a driver for you. I think, you know, I identify with that. And a lot of people in my life have told me that I'm crazy when I make certain decisions. And so talk to me about how you sort of stand in your own confidence while you weren't confident making the decision, like you knew it was the right move for you. So when you're met with the people around you being like, you're nuts, talk to me about the inner journey that happens for you that re-solidifies like, no, I'm doing this thing.
That's a hard question to answer. I don't know. I don't know what happens. I think that people look at me, and when they talk about me as a very confident person. And I think that's how I come across. That's not how I always feel on the inside, for sure. And, you know, I just realized recently that it's beneficial for me to let people know that. So, you know, so other women and, you know, younger people in their professional journey don't think, oh, to get there, you have to be confident all the time. So I really trust my own judgment. And I think it's hard to not let other people's opinions about you or, you know, inject into kind of what you think you should do for yourself. I don't know how it's there, but I have that. Like, trust myself.
Yeah. Okay. A couple of things there. So I love that this podcast, we bring people on who on paper are rock stars, right? And then they come on and 100% of the time they say, I don't know, you know, I'm not sure. I just figured it out as I went. I'm, you know, building the plane as we're flying it, you know? And so I just love that message comes through time and time again, because I think that is the foundation of most big decisions, right? And how people kind of get where they are is just a series of bold choices that you didn't 100% believe in at the time, and figuring it out as you go. And the other thing I love that you just touched on is this idea of self-trust, which is kind of our foundational definition of confidence, is just trusting in yourself time and time again and feeling the momentum of those choices throughout your life.
Yes, definitely. I think that over time, when you know, and trusting yourself doesn't always mean that every decision you make is right or that they all work out perfectly. In fact, some of the things that have happened in my life that haven't been perfect are the things that I've learned the most from. And so, you know, I think that you always look up to the levels beyond you and above you and think, man, those people in that room, they really know. They know something that I don't know. And then you get into that room and you're like, no, anything different than what I know. We all, you know, the difference is just being bold and fearless sometimes, and just using your voice, not being afraid, not waiting for somebody to let you chime in. It's like, no, you have amazing, brilliant thoughts. Like, just say it, right?
Yes, I love that. Okay, so you are a new author. Yes. Is that right? Yes. Okay, so tell us a little bit about why you decided to write the book. Did you always know you wanted to be an author, or is this another example of like, oh, let's try this and see what happens? So tell us all the things about the book.
Right. So the book is called Win-Win: Helping Organizations Mitigate Legal Risk for the Common Good. No, I did not always want to be an author. I never really thought about writing a book, although I like to write. No. So this really came about from my years of experience representing victims of medical malpractice and sexual assault. I represented some of the Larry Nassar sexual assault survivors some of the gymnasts. And, throughout my career, I've observed so many instances of people being harmed and then coming forward to, report the harm and then being harmed again by the process. It's a secondary assault on people when they come forward and they're treated poorly. And there's, it's a horrible process for them to go through. And it doesn't really have to be like that. I think that institutions can do things in a different way so that they, provide some trauma-informed care to people when they're communicating with them and treating them as more human. So from that point of view, I think that this is a really important book, and it's helpful to people, helpful to institutions to teach them how to do this better. But it really came about for me because when I was at Harvard, I had an incident that I actually had to come forward and report. This is a program designed for executives that have been in leadership for many years. So, most of the people were my age, or a little bit older. And I was just randomly and oddly assaulted by one of the people in my program. And going through I'm fine. And it wasn't, right? It's hard for me to distinguish between some of the really devastating assaults that have happened to people that I've represented. This is not that, but it was not right. And so I reported that. And just watching the process from the other side, I've been a fierce advocate for my whole life. And, you come in hot and strong when you're a lawyer for somebody that you're representing. It was hard for me in a very different way, being the person having to come forward because you're going through, you're vulnerable, you're going through a lot, And so while I was going through that process, I ended up being pretty vocal, as you might imagine, at a certain point when they didn't take action in ways that they should have, in my opinion. And so in doing that, I ended up kind of building a relationship with a couple of the people at Harvard. And after I graduated, they invited me back out to the university to meet with some administrators and kind of give some feedback on the process and what went wrong and what changes I think would be helpful for them, to which they implemented a few of those things. And so they showed me that you can turn a situation that is really contentious and, not a great situation into one where they're listening to somebody and making changes to their process that is going to be helpful for not only the person coming forward, but everyone else in the institution. And so I was journaling while I was there. I actually had to do a project towards the end before I graduated. And I ended up doing a project on this type of thing where I come up with a program to help institutions do better. And when I got home, all my journaling, I'm looking at it, I'm like, this is kind of an outline of a book. And I think I need to just put this together in a book format. And so I hired a writing coach because I'm like, I don't know how to write a book. And so she helped me. It took me about 2.5 years to complete the book, and it just published January 5th.
Oh my gosh, there's so much going on.
I know that was a long-winded answer.
No, that's great.
It's great. And the thing is, gosh, 2.5 years. Like, how many people give up on something?
Yeah.
That takes 2.5 years for them to get off of their, honestly, we're all so short-term focused that, you might have an idea to do something and then, you do it a little bit, but then 6 months later, you're like, I forget it. I moved on to the next thing. So talk to me about what it was like going through that process and staying focused on getting it off the ground for 2.5 years.
It was not easy. I will say that. I have a very full life with the firm and with my family. And so figuring out the place where that would fit in turned out to be, the hours of 3 to 5 in the morning and 10 to midnight, really. And so I'd be just up at my computer the wee hours of the night, just doing it. And the writing process is what I didn't realize is, some days I'm like, yeah, this is amazing. This is going to be great. It's going to help so many people. And then other days I'm like, this is the stupidest thing anybody's ever done. Like, nobody's going to care about this. And so it's an interesting process to go through psychologically. And so, yeah, I don't like to quit. That's a thing for me. And even if it was going to be horrible, I needed to do it to finish it,
And, thinking too about just how traumatic by nature it is to have to involve a lawyer in anything, right? Like I'm just thinking about any person who hires a lawyer is going to walk into a gauntlet of rehashing something that wasn't positive. I think it's actually really amazing that you were able to take your experience and also your desire to not like hurt the people who've already been hurt and create something that would make that process less traumatic and less stressful for the people that are going through it. Do you feel like creating the outline of that book and writing that book has made you a better lawyer for the clients that you serve too?
I mean, definitely. I have always been a very empathetic person, and kind of my past life and my history and my childhood has kind of lended me a little bit more towards understanding and feeling more than I think some people do. It's just who I am. But this gave me such a unique perspective. And when I thought I was so in tune, and then now I realize like even the pieces that I was missing. So yeah, I think it definitely has helped.
Yeah. And what I love about the book, and you touched on it a little bit before, is just kind of the element of humanity that and how long of a way that can go when you bring it in. I work in the courthouse, and just being in the industry, right? It has the reputation of just being harsh and aggressive and combative all the time. And I often think at work, man, if someone just cared about another human, half of these cases likely might not even be here. Mm-hmm. And so I just love that thread is also through the book and through a lot of the points, the book is trying to make. Do you find that also kind of translates like in your work every day, just like trying to bring that thread of humanity, whether it's leading the team or representing clients, or, doing something with your kids, but just how that thread plays through your entire life?
Yes, definitely. I mean, starting with the work, I was recently in a facilitation, and, anybody that's represented clients in any kind of case, you sit there with them, and you go into a facilitation type situation where you have the other party in different rooms, and you're in the room with your clients, and somebody's going back and forth trying to help you resolve the case. And I'm sitting, this is after, a couple years of litigation already. So this family, they lost a loved one, and what they're saying in those moments is, why didn't they come? This company, they're in my community for years. Why didn't they come to my dad's funeral? Like if they had just done, like we wouldn't even be here today. And you hear so many things like that. And of course, people need to be financially compensated for, the injuries that they have received and damages that they have. All of those things are true. But I think that there's a anger and like, why aren't you treating me like a human being? That just exacerbates all of the processes. And so, we're living in a really strange time right now, and the world is, it feels a bit angry. And I think that we all could use a little more humanity in all of our dealings every time. And then, in the office with our colleagues, just spending time with all the amazing people that you work with that you don't get to spend a ton of time with every day, and just learning something unique and cool about somebody that you haven't had a chance to know. I don't know. I just think it like makes the days better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, as you look to the future of your career, like tell me, having written a book and become the president of the law firm, like what's next on the horizon for someone that's so ambitious?
I don't know. My husband my husband jokes with me all the time because I love doing medical malpractice. And I was like, for a hot minute, I was like, man, I don't know. Should I have been a doctor? And so, it's just 2 years ago. So every time I, say to my husband, hey, I was thinking about something, he's like, all right, what are we doing? Like, are you going to medical school? What are you doing? I don't know. I don't know what's on the horizon. I mean, our firm, we're in an amazing growth phase right now, which I love. So strategizing about the future of the firm is really exciting for me. There's a lot of work that people are asking me to kind of help them with things related to the book, different people I know in different companies. I think that maybe when I retire from the firm many years from now, that might be something that I look forward to doing. But I don't know. I'm excited for a moment to kind of stay grounded in the work that we're doing here, and that extra time that I was writing book, now trying to like get back into my, my life of exercise, just the thing.
Yeah.
I put a lot on hold to do that. And I tried for none of that to be my family. But in doing that, something's got to give, right? So I feel like lost a little bit of the self-care. You know, it's such
Yeah.
a balancing act. Like people think, oh, you can do it all. No, you cannot. Like something has to give where you think
Yeah.
if you're doing everything that you should be at work, there's something that you should, that you're not tending to at home and vice versa. So it's just kind of, I guess to answer that question, I'd like to maintain balance for myself a little bit better. And that's what I hope to do in the near future.
That is awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us today. Where can people learn more about you or get the book if they're interested?
Yes, my website, www.rebeccasposita.com.
Okay, awesome. And we'll link that in the show notes. Rebecca, thank you so much for chatting with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really nice meeting you both.
Yes.
All right, we'll talk to you guys soon.